Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine the entire Philippines is just one big family. We've got our income, we've got our expenses, and like any family, we've got to ask a really important question about our finances.
So, what's the verdict for our national family? Are we the type that's really good at saving up for a rainy day? Or are we a family that's kind of drowning in debt? That's the huge question we're going to unpack today. And to get our answer, we're not just guessing. We're going straight to the source, a report from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Now, I know that sounds super formal, but just think of it as our country's official financial checkup. We're going to break down exactly what it means. Okay, so they use this fancy term called the balance sheet approach. But don't let the jargon scare you. All it really means is that it's a way to add up everything we own, all our assets, our ipon, and subtract everything we owe, all our liabilities, our utang. It gives us the total picture. So if we're talking about a national family budget, who's actually in this family? Let's meet the key players. Whoa, okay, that looks complicated. A bit like a spider's web of finance, right? But trust me, it's not as scary as it looks. This is just a map that shows how money moves around our economy. We'll come back to it in a bit, and it'll all make sense. All right, let's crack the code on this map. GG, that's the government. NFC are businesses and companies. ODC, those are the banks. ROW is basically the rest of the world. But the most important one for our story today is HH. That stands for households. And yeah, that means you, me, and every other Filipino family. Now, there are really only two key terms you need to know. First, net creditor. That's just a fancy way of saying you have more savings, more ipon, than you have debt. You're in the green. And a net debtor, well, that's just the opposite. You've got more utang than ipon. Simple as that. Okay, you ready for this? Because this is where the story gets really, really interesting. This is the big reveal, where we see how your personal savings are literally the engine that powers the entire nation. Just look at this number. 15.3 trillion pesos. That's not million, not billion, that's trillion with a T. That is the total net savings of all Filipino households combined as of the second quarter of 2025. It's an absolutely mind-blowing amount of money. So what does that giant number actually mean? It means this, and this is the main event. Filipino households, that's all of us, are by far the biggest group of savers in the entire country. We are the #1 net creditors. Hey, remember that complicated map from before? Let's look at it again. See that big blue circle labeled HH for households? See how it's huge compared to all the others? That's not just a random design choice. It visually shows us just how much financial power we, as households, actually hold. So, we've got all this cash saved up. Where does it all go? Does it just sit under our mattresses? Nope. Follow the thick green arrows on the map. You can see our savings flowing directly from us, the households, straight into the banks. That's our collective 15.3 trillion pesos powering up the financial system. And the banks don't just hoard that money in a vault. They act like a financial matchmaker. They take all our savings and then lend it out to two really big players, the government and big businesses. Think about that for a second. The money you put in the bank, it's literally what funds new roads, schools, and the companies that create jobs all over the country. But wait, that's only one side of the coin. It's a pretty great story, right? We're all amazing savers. But there's another side to this national balance sheet. Let's flip it over and talk about our utang, especially the money we owe to other countries. Just look at the difference 1 year makes. On the left, in 2024, our net debt to the rest of the world was 2.6 trillion pesos. Now look at the right. By 2025, it's jumped all the way to 3.7 trillion. That is a massive increase in a very short time. And if that last image wasn't clear enough, this bar chart really spells it out. From 2.6 trillion up to 3.7 trillion pesos. Do you know what that is in percentage terms? That's a 43.6% jump. In just 1 year. That's a lot. So you're probably asking, why? Why such a huge increase? Well, the report points to three main things. First, the government simply borrowed more money from other countries. Second, big Filipino companies sold more of their ownership, their shares, to investors overseas. And third, our own central bank has a little less money invested abroad than it did before. So this leads us to the most critical question of all. What does any of this actually mean for you? We've got this strange situation. trillions in savings on one side and trillions in debt on the other. How does this financial tug-of-war affect your daily life and your wallet? All right, let's connect all the dots. How does the money in your savings account link to the nation's growing foreign debt? What is the real-world day-to-day impact on you? Well, it's kind of like a chain reaction. It starts with your IPON going into the bank. That money then funds the utang of the government and big companies. Now, that government debt can build great things like infrastructure, but it might mean higher taxes down the road to pay it all back. And that foreign debt, that can weaken the peso. When the peso is weaker, everything we buy from other countries, from your phone to the gas in your car, gets more expensive. This quote really gets to the heart of it all. The money you save, even if it doesn't feel like a lot, becomes something huge when combined with millions of others. It's not just a number in your bank account. It's the actual foundation, the bedrock that our entire economy is built on. So if you take just one thing away from this, let it be this. Your personal financial decisions matter so much more than you probably think. Your savings are incredibly powerful. They are the fuel for our businesses and the funding for our government. You are directly shaping the future of our country. And that leaves us with one final, very powerful question to think about. Since we now know that our collective I spend is the real engine of the economy, how can we make sure that engine is driving all of us toward a stronger, more stable, and better future for everyone?